So next one.
Yeah.
The next film. Now this one, I think we're gonna disagree on a bit. Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
This film, for me, is my least favorite Spider-Man film, and that's a universe where Spider-Man 3 exists. For me, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is the definition of rush production. Everything in the film, for me, does not feel earned. Maybe a couple things that I'm forgetting, but that's the thing. I've watched this film I probably watched this film maybe a year and a half ago, and I watched this one beforehand, and I remember the Amazing Spider-Man 1 a lot more than I remember Amazing Spider-Man 2. But from what I remember Green Goblin being abhorrently just terrible to watch, and it was a standout issue for me. What was the other villain again? Oh, Electro. Yeah, Electro was also somebody who...
Jamie Foxx is a great actor, by the way.
Amazing actor! Just given a shit
character.
role. Given a really shit role. Which sucks because the spectacle of his fight was pretty goddamn cool. That fight in the Times Square, I think that's what it's called, the Times Square. That fight was awesome. But the music behind it was kind of shit. And I want to add something to that. There's an ad-lib in there that's pretty fucking funny, going along the lines of like this guy just whispering into the mic, he lied to me, he shot at me, he hates me. Like when I hear shit like that, I'm like, why is that in the film? Just give me the instrumental. Why is there lyrics? It doesn't make sense. You know?
It's the voices.
So,
because he crazy.
Stop it. So, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 has a lot of issues, but I will give it this. I am always a massive fan of films or any kind of media that has balls, okay? And The Last of Us 2 is one of those things one of those games that I love because it had balls. It forced you to be vengeful for a character that you only know in a digital world. It has balls. And this film had balls to kill Gwen Stacy at the end of it. I didn't think it was going to happen. I don't know any kid that thought that something like that was actually possible, unless you already read the comic. But if you didn't do that and you just watched the movies like me, when you see Gwen Stacy actually break her neck on that fall, holy shit, that's an extremely memorable moment in that film. That being said, the lead up to it wasn't that good. I think there was some great spectacle in this film. I think that, como se dice, some of the moments between Aunt May and Peter, if I remember correctly, weren't too bad. But the Green Goblin arc was abhorrent. There were some good fights with Electro, but his character was also just snapped to bad really quickly, and he didn't have any build-up, which sucks because the Sam Raimi trilogy had plenty of build-up before they turned their characters bad. It's like, como se dice, it's like, you guys have the blueprint, come on. But you want to rush it, unfortunately. I will say that the end scene with him finding Rhino is pretty fucking cool. It's like, okay, kid, I got this. You're a hero, all that. Like, there are good moments in the film, but I will say that this film is easily my least favorite because of the bad stuff being horribly bad rather than just boring or kind of bad. The stuff that's bad in this film is really bad, and it's either a slog to watch or insulting. That being said, though, it's still got some good moments, but it's my least favorite. Now that I've said what I've said, Squito, you go ahead and you talk about your supposed hot take. Go ahead.
So, I'm pretty biased with The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Best film ever made, 10 out of 10.
No, definitely not a 10 out of 10. But this movie has sauce, as I like to say.
Sauce.
This movie has the sauce.
Picante.
It's the Spider-Man movie I've actually rewatched the most. And it's because I had it downloaded on my phone at a certain point, and so I had easy access to just watch it at any point in time.
Fair enough.
And so it's because of that, it's my most rewatched Spider-Man movie, and it's also the one I've kind of analyzed the most. I've gone back and forth so many times between I love this movie and this is the worst movie ever made. It has so much going for it and so much potential that could have been had with a potential sequel, and it's just a movie that overall ended up leading nowhere. But I think in terms of filmmaking and performances, I think Mark Webb still banged out the best movie he could in the circumstances he had, because Sony was really pushing to build a cinematic universe around Spider-Man. And so The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was basically going to be the beginning of that. But I think there's still a lot of, an emotional center to be had with this movie, specifically with Peter and Gwen and their relationship. It was the strongest part of The Amazing Spider-Man 1, and it's the strongest part of The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
It is. I agree with you.
The two of them.
Yes.
And so having them, they break up at the beginning of the movie, and then they try to be, kind of just friends, and it's like a whole will they, won't they. And then, right when Peter makes the decision, he's like, you know what? Like, fuck it. I love you. I'm going to follow you everywhere. We're going to be together. And then she dies, and it just, it makes that story so tragic and so heartbreaking. But
because her father was right.
Her father was right, but it was also Gwen's decision that led to her fate.
Right, but that's not how Peter sees it. Peter sees it as his my fault.
Peter's he's gonna blame himself. That's just how Spider-Man is in general. He's gonna blame himself for everything bad that happens. But what really brings the movie down are the villains. Electro is just kind of there. He's like the most generic villain you can probably think of in a superhero movie. Like Lizard was generic. Electro is more generic.
Fuck, yeah.
Which is crazy.
Which is hard to think about. Like, really?
He's just more generic. They do the whole nerd scientist turned villain thing, and it doesn't work. But like I said, Jamie Foxx is still a great fucking actor. I think he's still rocked with what they gave him. His scene in Times Square, like you mentioned before, that scene is really where he like makes the switch into being a villain, and you can even just see it in his demeanor, and it's just Jamie Foxx is just so fucking good with like little nuances and subtleties. Harry Osborn, I fucking hate that character in this movie. he brings it down. You can take him out of the movie, and I think it would be more enjoyable for that.
Yes. Which is crazy because I like that actor. I've seen him in Chronicle. He's pretty decent. He's not crazy good.
No disrespect. No disrespect to Dane DeHaan. It's the character. I don't like the character.
He's got some good chops, and even though he comes off kind of as an edgelord, I mean, in a Chronicle, he's a social reject. It makes sense. Mm-hmm. But in Amazing Spider-Man 2, he was given dog shit material to work with. Come on, man. Mm-hmm. It's just a joke.
Yeah. And then you mentioned that Aunt May and Peter's relationship wasn't really that
any moments
strong.
In this?
So Aunt May has about three major scenes in the movie. So she's in the beginning, of course. She's there for like Peter's graduation, and then there's a little scene of them at home. But really, her big scene in the movie is when she's in Peter's room and she sees the little web he's been making. Not a literal web, but like all the files and pictures and everything he has of his parents.
Right.
Because he's trying to figure out what the fuck happened to them. That whole subplot is stupid, by the way. But the scene where they're in the bedroom talking, and you can see she's visibly distraught that he's going so far to find out what happened to his father. And then there's that little moment of she's saying that you're my boy. It's like your parents didn't raise you, I did. I'm the one that made you food and did your laundry and put you to bed every night and took you to school. You're my boy. And then there's that little moment where he sits in front of her and he's just like, yeah, I'm your boy and you're my everything. And so I love their dynamic. I love their relationship together, that mother-son relationship right. that they have. And then there's the scene at the end that Aunt May has after Gwen passes, and Peter hasn't been Spider-Man for 5 months. And so people are asking, where is Spider-Man? And so Peter gets up and he's about to he's just gonna walk out of the room, and she's like, where are you going? He's like, I don't know. He doesn't know what he's doing with his life without Gwen. He has no direction. And then so she's saying, she's putting away Uncle Ben's stuff, and he's like, you're getting rid of him? And she's like, oh no, I could never do that, but it's a part of me, but I'm just finding a better place for it. And I think that little message that she gives Peter to kind of help him move on, it's a really nice subtle moment between them that I really enjoy. So I love Sally Field as Aunt May. Personally.
I think she's great. I think she's great. I have a preference, but I still think she's great.
Yeah.
What bothers me, and I'm going to let you continue your point, I just have to pause you. What bothers me is you can tell tell that there could have been more. It could have been better.
Oh yeah.
But the studio says you have to do these things, you have to do it within this time frame, and you have to make this amount of money no matter what. Mm-hmm. So you have to put all of these selling points in your film, except that if you put too many of these selling points without properly developing them in, the film, it makes it worse. And it's the same thing that happened with Spider-Man 3. It's the same thing that happened with this film. You could tell that they could have done more, just like in the first Amazing Spider-Man, but they didn't get the chance to. And it's painful to see that reality. See that become a reality. It's horrible. Anyway, continue.
And it sucks because there's a lot of substance with the Amazing Spider-Man 2. It's just that the substance doesn't really go anywhere. Say what you want about Spider-Man 3, but there's a cohesive ending and everyone has an arc in that film. The relationships are really strong, and even if it wasn't meant to be the final film of the trilogy, it serves as a great ending to the trilogy.
Right.
Whereas the Amazing Spider-Man 2 just kind of ends and
leaves everything broken.
Yeah.
Even No Way Home acknowledges that. It leaves everything
for sure.
broken. He was mid-arc and it got canceled.
Yeah, but for me personally, as someone who has seen the movie so many times, it's really it's Andrew Garfield's performance as Peter, as Spider-Man, that carries the movie, because he just, he put fucking everything into this movie and got nothing in return.
Yeah.
And it sucks to see.
Which is why he was so hesitant about 3. He didn't give a fuck. That's why he got... Well, didn't he get fired and they canned the film? How'd that work?
Yeah, so they were going to have a press conference to announce The Amazing Spider-Man 3, because, again, Sony wanted a big cinematic universe. So, right after Amazing Spider-Man 2 released, they were going to greenlight the third movie. And I believe the press conference was in a different country. I think it was Japan or something. So Andrew Garfield, he said that he had jet lag after the long flight he had. And so when he got to his hotel room, he fell asleep and he missed the conference. And they basically just fired him on the spot for being Spider-Man. And with firing him, they basically just threw the rest of the franchise into the fucking garbage.
Which is wild. Huh.
Over jet lag.
Yeah, man. I don't know.
Yeah, but... I think this movie has a lot of great individual moments. It's when you put the moments together that the film doesn't make any sense. And that's really what hurts it. So I understand it. When people say they hate The Amazing Spider-Man 2 or it's their least favorite, I get it. Because I was also in that position many times over, where I thought this was the worst fucking movie ever made. But I think after 10 years and after rewatching it so many times, I just have such a high respect for it. And it's a movie that's resonated a lot with me over the years. So I have a personal bias to it. I really love The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Despite everything that went on behind the scenes, despite everything that went on after, I still love The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And a lot of what the movie gets right is some of my favorite stuff in any Spider-Man movie. But the stuff it gets wrong is some of the worst shit in superhero movie history. And so it's a hard movie for me to just rank, because it has to be personal bias. I can't look at that movie with a critical eye. It has to be personal bias.
I think the only time where I was ever visually like abhorrently disgusted with a bad decision that was made in Sam Raimi's trilogy was in Spider-Man 3, when Venom was making a sexual joke at Mary Jane's expense. That was probably the only time where I was like, oh, shut the fuck up.
Isn't it when he says, oh, my spider sense is tingling, and he's, pointing down?
Yeah, that's really the only time where I'm like, shut the fuck up. Any other time, I was like, oh, this is all right. Or, I don't like this, but okay. In Spider-Man...
Sam Raimi still cooked with what he had.
Yes, with what he had.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, I agree. He cooked with what he had. Unfortunately, what he had, some of it was dog water. All right?
Yeah.
Now, with The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I had multiple moments where I was like, oh, shut the fuck up. Anything with Green Goblin, shut the fuck up. I don't care.
He's in it a lot.
Yeah. So that's my thing, right? Is that I did like the part where they were sitting out looking at the water, but that's about it. Anything in the office, anything after, just horrible. So my thing is that at the end of the day, if you want to judge each film, C has way more good than Amazing Spider-Man 2. And the bad that's in Spider-Man 3 is nowhere near as bad as what's bad in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So I think a fair rating would be Amazing Spider-Man 2 in D tier. That's what I think. What do you think?
That's fair. Spider-Man 3 is still my least favorite, but I will agree with The Amazing Spider-Man 2 in D tier.
Go ahead.
Because like what we talked about, or what I mentioned, was Spider-Man 3 still being a coherent ending to the franchise. Amazing Spider-Man 2 didn't get that privilege.
Didn't do that. It had a cool moment at the end, but it required a sequel to make it better, and it didn't get that. So
it also really, like, looking at the two of them, when you look at Spider-Man 3 and The Amazing Spider-Man 2, both were dealt a shit hand.
Yes.
But I think it's Sam Raimi's experience as a filmmaker allowed him to still make a pretty good movie. Whereas Mark Webb, I think this was his third feature-length movie.
Really?
With The Amazing Spider-Man 2, so he didn't have the experience that Sam Raimi did. But he tried, and I commend him for that.
I do too.
Making movies is fucking hard.
I think
making movies is a bitch.
I agree. I do think that there are some good moments in the film, but there are also some really abhorrently bad moments, like parts where I was just insulted that I was even watching it. And
yeah.
I can't say that about the other films here. I can't.
Yeah, I get it.
So
I get it.
I would say D tier.
D tier.
But I understand and I respect your opinion because it's structured and it's well spoken. Unlike other people who just say, "Oh, it's just bad." You know?
But why?
So
why is it bad?
That's why I can't put it in F, because it's not terribly bad. It's just got more bad moments. So I'd say D tier is a safe rating.
Absolutely fair.
Okay. Anything else you have to say about that film before we move on?
No. I like it. I love it. It's Amazing Spider-Man.
I'd say I give that film... I'm going to give ratings. I'd give that film a solid 4 out of 10. Below average. That's what I think. It's not a horrible film. It's just... It's not a comfortable watch for me. It's not.
Yeah. Also my favorite Spider-Man costume in a movie.
Yes, it has that going for it. It really does.
Yeah. Nope. It looks good. That's it. It just looks good.
Fair enough.